Now let us move to, we were talking about the system level frequency response, system level of system level inertia. So let us move to the concept of center of inertia and role of inertia in stabilities, and many things we will look into that. So one of the prominent question is that means when we are in the colleges and we do our we check whatever we study in our power system courses. So one of the key question that lies there is that do we observe the same frequency at all nodes in power system when there is a frequency event in the power system? And the reality of frequency, so let us look into the reality of frequency variation. The answer is simply no. We will see different frequency variation post any power system event at different at different nodes in the system. So you can see this is just a whenever there is a whenever there was a generation loss, you can see that's the frequency from the different nodes, and you can see if you look a very closer look at the initial frequency, you can see that some of them has immediately the frequency has immediately changed. Some of the frequencies are not changing that immediately. So you can see there will be some units may accelerate also initially. There may be the nodes which are very quite near to the source of disturbance, they will decelerate. And there will be means one frequency will be there in the or one or two frequency or whatever a group of frequency nodes will be there in the system, which are showing there is not that much of acceleration deceleration, they just start reducing. So this overall frequency going up and down, and there is a frequency that we will see there is a node and whose frequency you will see that there is a smooth gradual drop is there. So this we call as the center of inertia frequency. So why this frequency does not drop uniformly in the power system post any frequency event? So means post any frequency event, what will happen? Load and balance between the load and generation is lost basically. So you are having either the additional generation or you having the additional load in the system, or you can have a shortfall in the generation or shortfall in the load in the system. So this transfer, because these are all happening on the electrical side, right, in the power system. So this transfer of electrical information, change in the phase angle, change in the propagation of electromechanical wave, all these inputs will have certainly some delays. And we should know that the things we say that the electricity is, the photon movement is there, means electron movement is there, and the energy is there. So it should travel with the speed of light. But now when we are dealing that is with the electromagnetic wave. That's true. But here we have to deal with the such kind of information transfer. We are dealing with the electromechanical wave propagation basically. So electromechanical wave propagation takes time to reach the other side. It may be like 50 millisecond, 10 millisecond, 100 millisecond, depending upon the size of the grid basically, the electrical distance between the two far away nodes in the system. So what happens to the frequency frequency near to the source of the frequency event? Why it varies rapidly compared to other locations? So further means we should know that the further is the location, more delay in the response, because the information transfer will certainly take 50, 100 or 200 milliseconds. As soon as this information gets transferred, the power angle will change over there. And based on that, or the frequency of that particular generator will receive that the certain things has happening in the system, and due to which the frequency is dropping. So that time he will start responding. So there will be certainly a delay in the response from the others. So means more far away you are located from the source of the event. And if the event source is very nearby, then let us say I have a generating complex over there, 2 units trip. So generating complex out of, let us say it as a 10 generating units. Okay. So now the 10 generating units were contributing to inertia. Now, as soon as there is a tripping of 2 or 3 or 4 units, there will be a drop in the inertia of that particular complex. So certainly there will be an image, because the information, the event has happened over there, and the inertia of that particular area has immediately dropped. So that's why the frequency drop will be quite faster compared to other nodes where the inertia support is already there. There is no major change in the inertia support in other side of the system. So that's why we will have a concept of regional inertia or area inertia and a global inertia. These kind of things will be there. And with IBR, the regional inertia is a very crucial component. We need to look into the, let us say, if one of the area is having a quite more IBR and its inertia is less, there are a lot of problem over there compared to area where the inertia is good. So we will have a concept of regional inertia when we will look into the monitoring aspect. So this is the concept basically you have a single machine infinite bus system, then your rate of change of frequency, the power swing equations, you define your inertia, the relation between the inertia, rate of change of frequency, and how much generation or the load loss is there or change in the electrical and mechanical power is there in the system. So this is the equation that defines it, and based on this, the rate of the inertia, the whenever there is a loss in the generation or in a loss of generation is there, so we can see that the inertia, if if inertia is more, the rate of change of frequency will be less, higher on the higher side basically, and if the inertia is less, then we have a very fast rate of change of frequency in the system can be there. So this is just about the one particular generator when we are talking about single machine infinite bus. When talk about power system, it's like a lot of machines are connected with each other, right? And consequent for any kind of imbalance, you see that there is a non-uniformity. So inertia is distributed across the entire system. So we cannot say that the inertia of one machine at that point of time, inertia of one machine is not, the concept will not be, means it will be relevant to us. At that point of time, we have seen that there is a rate of change of this center of inertia is there basically. One machine which may be in between the system, not quite far away, not quite close located to the source of event, but somewhere in between where we will see a uniform drop in the frequencies there. So this basically introduces the concept of center of inertia, which is basically the weighted average of, means all the change in the inertia and the frequency is there. And based on that, whatever the frequency, rate of change of frequency for that particular node we get, it can be a fictitious node, it can be an actual node also, but it's a concept that we utilize for defining many of the things. So this particularly defines, because otherwise you will see a lot of variation, which frequency to take for your calculation. So that's why in the actual power system, we go with the frequency concept of center of inertia, where we see that frequency drop will be very smooth and we can utilize it for designing any kind of protection, any kind of schemes for frequency control for the entire power system. So this basically the center of inertia frequency, we can see that it is summation of individual inertia of machines and what the frequency change it is observing over there, and divided by its summation of the entire inertia. So this will provide a center of inertia frequency. And it is very important to have center of inertia frequency known because it represents the true system frequency by weighting electrical rotor speeds, and the rate of change of frequency of this particular center of inertia frequency, it can be utilized, it reflects the at what rate the frequency is changing over the time. And it can be utilized for, means under frequency load shedding scheme design, frequency response analysis, and the different controls. And it can be used for magnitude of event, what the type means, how much loss is there, you can estimate using the center of inertia frequency. And you can estimate where the location is there. It can be used for stability improvement. It can be used for fault right through control also. But there are certainly a lot of challenges in center of inertia, because you need a lot of measurement from the system for real-time monitoring of center of inertia post any kind of event basically. And let's go to the we understood the concept that after generation there will be loss of generation, there will be a fall in the frequency, and the fall in the frequency will be happening with the rate of change of frequency. So this rate of change of frequency is very crucial, because if means we observe that if this much the loss in generation is quite high, the rate of change of frequency also, because inertia will be constant kind of quantity in the system. So this rate of change of frequency will be high when the loss of generation will be high. So it is very important to control this rate of change of frequency. And this rate of change of frequency, basically the fall in the frequency, the rate at which it is falling, it basically decides how much time you have for other controller in the system to take any action. Let us say if your inertia is quite high, 300 gigawatt second. So a rate of change of frequency is slightly, means it is slower compared to if your inertia is less, then what you observe is that the rate of change of frequency is quite more, right? So what we observe is that if the rate of change of frequency is quite more, means the fall is quite sharp. The time delay between, means reaching from one frequency point to other frequency point is quite less. And here you can see the time, let us say if I go from 49.4 to let us say I am going to 49.2, I have a more amount of time, but here you can see 49.4 to 49.2 amount of time available to me is very less. And this time is very crucial because other controller, whatever like the governor control, which has certain time delays introduced, AGC controller also has certain time delays. They will take certain amount, they will ask certain amount of time to act and provide additional generation, increase the generation input from the different generators into the system. So this rate of change of frequency is very critical parameters. So thus it helps in, reducing this rate of change of frequency. If you are trying to control it, or if it is quite less, then it helps in the nadir frequency, means the lowest frequency point wherever you reach. Because if you have less amount of time, other controller will not come into the service and they will not add input. The frequency will keep on falling till it is a balance. There is a balance between load and generation, and the speed of the generation at reach an equivalent point. And if you have more amount of time, so here the other control action will take place, and it will the drop in the frequency, or the minimum point at which the frequency stabilizes, will be quite on the higher side compared to low inertia system. So that's why inertia is a very crucial concept, and determining such kind and monitoring such kind of inertial response. And this another thing is that rate of change of frequency, for as you already see that the frequency is not falling at the same, means variation of frequency will not be same at the all the entire grid. Basically all the nodes will have a certainly different kind of variation in the frequency observed. Overall, later on, after a certain period of time, 5 to 6 seconds, they will come eventually at the same frequency. But initial frequency, when the frequency changes will be quite depending upon the local inertia itself. Okay, so that's why the rate of change of frequency or the different point in the grid will also be varying at that point of time. And this provides a concept that why it is happening, because the inertia, regional inertia are different and it is distributed across the grid. And according to that, the initial drop of frequency or the rate of change of frequency will be there in the system. And this rate of change of frequency is an important parameter in terms that it is utilized for designing of the under frequency load shedding scheme, designing of the time delay that you keep in the load shedding scheme, and whether do you need a rate of change of frequency in the power system or not. So now let us look into the aspect that the grid is right now changing, going through a means massive rate of change is there, energy transition is there. So grid is changing in terms that now we have more amount of inverter-based resources, which doesn't contribute that much to the inertia, and they're coming into the system. So our inertia is also changing, and there are so many more things that are changing with this combination or the mix of the generation in the system. And apart from the generation, the loads are also changing. Then this is one just quick example of the declining trend of power system inertia. So what you can see, the change of players there. So you can see the earlier good hairs, and now there is no. Same is the power system. We had good inertia resources earlier in the power system. Now we are going for the more integration of RE, which doesn't provide inertial support into the system. So there is a generally across the globe generated tendency of declining inertia in the power system is overall there. And we already discussed that this power system inertia basically it defines the rate of change of frequency according to the size of the contingency that happens, and it also it provides me a time for a speed of response which we need from the other equipment or other controllers, and how much response is required, that also is being designed. So system inertia is a very crucial concept. And if we have these kind of means more IBR into the system, what is happening is that we may face a problem of with the higher integration. If we have a more than 50% integration, then we may face means higher rate of change of frequency variation. Then the inertia of areas where there is a large IBR will be there, the inertia will be less. There we will observe a large rate of change of frequency whenever there is a fall in the, or there is any tripping or any kind of generation loss is there. So we will have a less amount of time to react to those frequency changes. The controller will get less amount of time. So lot of things are going to get impacted with that. So this is just, you can see that slowly in Indian power system also slight decline in inertia has been observed. However, we are so far we have a very good amount of thermal energy and hydro energy, hydro generations are there. So that's why our inertia is still on a very good, means higher side basically. So what is the impact basically? So impact, you can see that first is the frequency stability. So let us talk about that. So if you have lower means inertia in the power system, the frequency or the diminishing synchronous inertia in the, so what will happen to the frequency? We will see a lot of variation in the frequency, and we will have a very high rate of change of frequency due to the lower inertia in the system, and it will be very difficult to maintain the rate of change of frequency or frequency whatever whenever there is a tripping and then the frequency is falling, it is reaching to the lowest frequency point. So they're keeping that within the acceptable limit or above the under frequency load shedding limit will be a challenging task for. So you can see that if your inertia is low and let us say this is the 49 hertz is basically the rate of change of frequency, you can see that higher inertia doesn't touch for the same kind of event. But if you have lower inertia, it will go beyond this. And certainly, if you have less higher rate of change of frequency in the system due to the lesser inertia, then the response that you will be able to extract from the governor of the generator, basically, which will act basically on the excess steam or the with the means injecting more amount of water pressure into the turbines, basically. So those it has certain 4 to 5 second kind of delays are there. So those time delays, if that is if your fall in frequency or rate of change of frequency is quite high, they will not get enough amount of time to inject that much of energy, and then you will be seeing a means the recovery post the event will be slightly lower compared to the what we are observing right now. And then you have more amount of extended frequency excursion. Frequency after fall, it will take a more amount of time, or you will need to introduce a means higher amount of generation resources into the system to bring it back to the original frequency level. Then we have one thing is that the IBR is inverter-based resources also can provide a frequency response basically, and it can support the grid when such kind of events are there. So for the higher side, there is no issue because these are must-run plant. Whatever they generate, they have to inject into the system. So when there you see observe a very high frequency, then you can reduce the frequency. But if you see reduce the generation for the higher frequency. But when there is a fall in the frequency, you can't increase the generation because there is no reserves available over there. So that's means one talk that is economic means there is a policy decision and regulatory decisions are there over there for this providing a response from the IBR one when the frequency there is a drop in the frequency there. Then stability. So there are certainly means if your rate of change of frequency is quite on the higher side, then there is a stability impact can be there on the generators, synchronous generator stability also. So you may observe a large kind of torque swings. We may face situation if there is a let us say power plant is having a much of large amount of inverter based resource and nearby there is just one a small a kind of thermal plant is there. Okay, so if there is any event over there, then the inertia contribution is less, so you will see a large kind of power swing over there. So in that case, we may see a chance of pole slip also. But all these are means research topics are there. Practical aspect has not been seen of this, like the pole slipping and momentary reverse power. These are means these can happen, but there are no practically any kind of case studies are there. So, but this has been studied in detail because there are many countries across the globe where renewable penetration is very high, 80 to 90% of the time, and they have certain amount of generation. They keep it for the frequency control. So they are worried about that in case of generation, whether they will have a kind of tripping of that particular generation, which is controlling the frequency or the thermal or the gas, any kind of generation. So whether we will see observe tripping of those kind of synchronous generator during such kind of event with the low inertia or not. Small signal stability. So already you know that if you have lower number of synchronous generators, so we will have less number of power system stabilizer in the system basically. And so the damping, means it may get reduced. But on the other side, if you see if good amount of IBRs are there, so they may also, means reduce the loading on the synchronous machine. So they will be more, means have a more amount of time. They will be operating on lower load angle. So this can also improve damping. So this is depending upon the size of the system, depending upon the how these are being operated. So based on that, this impact on the small signal stability will be there. There are additional challenge with the IBR is that they have control in they can have a control issues, and there will be a control interaction problem is also there with the low short circuit ratio, and this causes oscillations also. And these oscillations, they range from very small, what we have observed in the governor oscillation, and it can range to sub-synchronous to super synchronous range also. So that's an additional challenge. Means it can provide, small signal stability can improve also, it can reduce also. Apart from that, with high IBR penetration, you have additional converter driven stability problems also, or converter driven oscillations also into the system. Then the short circuit ratio already means if you means less amount of synchronous generation and more amount of IBR are there, so short circuit ratio will be certainly getting impacted. And this, if you have a very small, lesser short circuit ratio in the system, the IBR also, they behave very poorly with the low short circuit ratio. There are solutions to it, how to improve the short circuit ratio. But, means with the short circuit ratio on the lower side, there will be a requirement of dynamic evaluation of your protection system. And and this is not that one time activity, it has to be continuously monitored, and there will be requirement of adjustment also. We talked about the UFLS that you under frequency load shedding, they first any kind of relay, they will first detect the signal, check, and it generally takes around 50 to 80 millisecond kind of for getting a accurate frequency measurement basically. And these are derived from the frequency voltage waveform also, right? And there can be some intentional time delay before sending a trip signal to get it verified, so that it doesn't provide, means kind of unwarranted kind of tripping. And there are delay associated with the under frequency load shedding operation, that is circuit breaker operational delay, and it is on the distribution side mostly. So there will be some time delay, communication delays can also be there if it is a centralized one. Decentralized one, they will depend upon what is the operating time of the breaker will be there. So certainly we have a 200 millisecond kind of delays there. So we have, if inertia is less, we are getting, if one frequency is breaching, let us say 49.4 hertz after a tripping major event in the system. So then from 49.4, one stage of frequency relays are there, under frequency relays are there placed in the grid. So it will operate, but it will take 200 millisecond of time. But let us say your rate of change of frequency is so high due to the low inertia that till the 200 millisecond you are breaching the additional stages of under frequency relays also, because your frequency rate of change of frequency fall is very significantly high. So in that case, you may have a unwarranted operation of other under frequency which are at the lower settings also. And that's what happened in the case of the South Australia blackout event in 2016. What they observed is a very high rate of change of frequency of 6 hertz per second, and their UFLS was not too fast to prevent the blackout, because till the time it operates, the frequency has fallen so much in such a short interval of time that means the generator has started tripping in their system. So that's why this inertia is very important also in terms of the designing of your defense mechanism also. So now we know that there are challenges basically, and we are thinking that what will happen, means what are the impact. These are severe impact can be on the grid with high IBR penetration. So we have challenges, then we also have solutions also in the power system. Okay, so let us look at the various solutions basically what are available in the power system. The first is the synchronous condenser that can be utilized, and the flywheel with the flywheel operation. So what is synchronous condenser? It is basically same as the synchronous. It is like a synchronous generator is there, but there is no turbine side on that side. There is no turbine on that side. So the inertia will be less compared to but it will be running on the synchronous frequency basically, and it will consume a small amount of active power from the system to run it at that frequency. And It can help you because it's a synchronous condenser. So it can help you in maintaining the voltage, providing the short circuit ratio, system strength, fault MVA level also. And apart from that, it is going to provide a lot of support in the terms of inertia. But the problem is that if you talk about a generating, let us say multi-stage, means generating turbine and the generator system basically. So turbine and generator system, you will have 80% of the inertia of any synchronous machine, thermal machine, coming from the turbine itself, the HPLP and IP turbine. And rest of the 20% comes from the generator rotation mass. So now we don't have the generator rotation mass over there. So 20% is there. So how you can increase the inertia? You can add a flywheel in a vacuum system so that it doesn't consume too much of energy, and so that it is a means you provide additional inertia in terms of adding a flywheel at its shaft basically. So that way you can provide a additional inertia to the system, increased inertia to the system at that point of time. So the synchronous condenser, it's not a means new concept. It's an old concept. In various places during the earlier days, it was utilized for the dynamic work and production and the system stability. Later on, with the increase in the size of the system, they were less utilized. Now with the more means increase in the IBR, now the synchronous condenser are being installed across the globe for increasing the short circuit level, fault MV and inertia into the power system. You can have grid following inverter through the fast frequency response. So they will just check fall in the frequency, rate of change of fall in the frequency, and based on that, they will try if there is available extra power with them, then they can support the grid into that. This can be like if there is a battery energy storage, it can utilize the same thing. It can directly support, it can increase the input to the system instantaneously. So we have the synchronous generator or we have the synchronous condensers are there, and we have the grid following inverters. The problem with that, with more amount of grid following inverters are there and synchronous generators are on the reducing side. What will happen is that because these are grid following, they depend upon the system frequency, and if there is all the, let us say there is no synchronous generator and all are IBR, so they will not know whom to follow. So any kind of the problem can result in the tripping of the entire system or going desynchronized. So in that case, we have a solution that has been come, that is the grid forming inverters, and that can provide a virtual inertia into the system. You can mimic a grid forming inverters in terms of its response, in terms of you can put an equation, you can put an algorithm so that it can mimic the response of the system and mimic the injection of the power in terms of any kind of inertia equation so that it behaves like a synchronous generator. But keep in mind that delay will be there. A small delays, 100 to 200 millisecond can be there, but it will not be inherent into the system. So summary is that what we observe is that we need to have inertia because it helps in resisting the minor frequency deviation due to any kind of load change. It restricts the rate of change of frequency basically. We have seen the power swing equation. So it restricts basically any change of frequency there, it tries to restrict it. More is inertia. So more it will be it will try to means the speed reduction of all the generator will be quite slow in nature. So rate of change of frequency will be means it will be very the rate of change of frequency will not be very fast. It will be very means on the slower side, and it gives you a lot of amount for means providing the response, and also it helps you in under frequency load shedding relay setting. And this delay will provide means the primary frequency respond to effectively act, and then it helps in reducing the nadir frequency also, because by the time the frequency is falling, the rate it is trying to restrict the rate. All the generators in the power system observe this frequency fall and they inject power. So the frequency, as they are trying to inject more power into the system through their frequency response or the Gardner response actions, then the frequency start increasing basically to reach the zenith point, or sorry, the nadir point, and then it starts recovering back. So this is also, it helps. However, the reduction in inertia, what we observe, there are certainly a lot of impact into the system in terms of stability. There can be angular stability issues. Small signal can be there. Protection system, we already know challenges are there. Short circuit strength are there. Oscillation in terms of converter driven oscillations are there. So certainly with the reduction in inertia, challenges and more reduction is coming due to the fact that we have to integrate more cleaner energy resources into the system. So we are knowing that problems are there. So let us, and inertia will be reducing in the system. We have to adopt measures to improve the inertia also. And apart from that improvement, what right now is needed is that measure the inertia. Basically, we need to monitor the inertia, because